Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Dynamics Corner, the podcast where we dive deep into all things Microsoft Dynamics. Whether you're a seasoned expert or just starting your journey into the world of Dynamics 365 or Power Platform, this is your place to gain insights, learn new tricks, and hear from industry expert. I'm your co-host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on October 12th, 2023. Kris. Do you like pickles?
It depends how it is being served.
What do you mean how it's being served?
Well,
I like dill pickles.
I don't want to eat pickles out of the jar. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love it be maybe on a burger or something else.
Bread and butter pickles are great on a burger.
I will give that a shot.
You know, you slice the pickle slices. You can buy the jar of bread and butter pickles.
Yep.
I really like pickles. Dill pickles are good too. Sometimes you can take them out of the jar with a fork and just eat it.
Yep, you could.
But I don't like the sliced dill pickles.
The pre-sliced ones?
I like the whole ones.
Yeah.
The bread and butter pickles I like sliced horizontally and placed on my burgers.
Fresh.
Yes, I like them. No, not fresh because they have to be pickled.
Yeah, that's
true. Pickle's not fresh.
That's the whole process. It's no longer fresh when it's pickled.
Correct. And they can last a long time when they're pickled.
Absolutely.
But today we had the pleasure of speaking with Savannah Dill, who's not a pickle, about the recent Power Platform conference. And we got to speak with Savannah about her insights, tips, and tricks for Power Platform. And we also learned a little bit about not being a pickle.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
I'm doing
very good.
Thank you. Very well.
Good.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I've been looking forward to it. And I can't thank you enough for my recent sticker.
Oh, yeah, you got them great.
I have a not a pickle sticker, which I will put on my laptop. Somebody told me not to put stickers on my laptop because I look like a kid. They said I'm too old to do that. Do you believe someone told me that?
No, you become a developer, man.
Yes.
My last laptop was completely sticker bombed.
Now I'm starting to get that way. So this not a pickle sticker will go on my laptop as soon as we're done with this. Although, Kris, I'm not going to tell you. She sent me 3.
Nice.
I'm not giving one to you.
Oh.
I knew that's where you were going to go with that. But then also included in my sticker packed. I can't speak today. Why? Is my I Love Community sticker.
Nice.
And do you remember which other one you sent me?
No, I don't remember.
Oh,
maybe Power Platform Conference from last year.
Yes, Microsoft Power Platform Conference from 2022. So I won't stick this one on my laptop because it's old and I didn't go. So therefore, I don't think I have the right.
Why don't you stick all your stuff on your mug? You know, like all that stuff. Like
No, because it's not as cool to have it on your laptop. See? And now I'll have, when I do my sessions next week, I'll have my not a pickle sticking up on the back of the laptop. But anyway, that's all relevant to our conversation. But so yes, as I had mentioned, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. I've been looking forward to it and to hear some information that you have to relay. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah. What do you want to know?
Who you are, what you do, what you like to do, however you.
How'd you get started?
How'd you get started?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. So, obviously, I'm Savannah.
But you're not a pickle.
Yeah, so I run a blog called Not a Pickle because my last name is Dill. Haha. I also work for.
I do like dill pickles, by the way, and those other butter pickles. I'm sorry, I don't mean to disrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're fine.
I'll stop talking.
Pickles are great.
What are those ones? The butternut. What are they called? Butter crisp. Butter.
I don't know. I am a dill pickle girly. I also I had a garden this past summer, and I made pickles out of all of my cucumbers.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. But when I'm not blogging, I work for my partner called the TM Group. And before that, I worked for another partner. As far as like how I got started in the Power Platform, I kind of fell into the role. And the more that I talk with people, the more I kind of see it's a common phenomena. Like, people in the Power Platform tend to fall into the role. Before I started in the Power Platform, I had no idea what the Power Platform was. I had never heard the two words together. I knew Microsoft and I knew they did things, and that was it.
No, it's one of those roles, but it is. I looked it up. It is bread and butter pickles. Are the
Bread
ones that
and
are
butter
like
pickles.
you put them on a burger or something or a sandwich. They're pretty good. I do like dill pickles. So you work with the Power Platform. So you run a blog called Not a Pickle. You said correct. And what type of information do you have on that blog?
So on the blog, I have a nice variety, I would say. I tend to focus on Power BI because that is my bread and butter.
It's our bread and butter pickle.
Yeah. I love Power BI, so I typically tend to focus on that. But I also focus on Business Central content and also doing event recaps. So if I go to anywhere or if anything is happening in the community, I might throw my 2 cents in there.
Kris and I know all about the 2 cents, so it's good. We like to see your contributions. And then now you had mentioned you had kind of fallen into Power Platform. I have noticed that with many that I've spoken with as well. It seems to me like Power Platform just miraculously appeared out of thin air. That one morning I woke up and that's all I heard. The day before, I never knew it existed. And then everyone's like, oh, I work with Power Platform and this is what I do. From my point of view, I see it's with the integration with Business Central is where my exposure came into it. I know it can be used for many other things other than integration with Business Central. And the other piece that you talked about is you do event recaps. Mm-hmm. And I've been looking forward to speaking with you on this because last week you went to an event.
Yes,
I'm
did.
jealous.
I am so jealous. I was able to keep up with what you were doing from afar, as I do all the time. Kris stalks everybody and he just sends me the information to look at, hey, did you see what they're doing over here? But which event did you attend?
So I attended the Microsoft Power Platform Conference in the beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada.
Nice.
It looks like there was a lot of people that attended there.
Yeah, I went to the conference in Orlando last year and doing a mental comparison on the amount of attendees and the amount of space was quite mind-blowing. And that also could have been amplified by the fact we were in Las Vegas, where everything is like bright and loud, and no one ever sleeps. So
because they pump oxygen into the street and into the casinos, into the rooms to keep you awake.
Yeah, I actually saw while in Vegas they had like oxygen bars where you could go and sit and.
Oh yeah. Just to get you going. Like, don't sleep. Get some oxygen. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Coming from the Midwest, I thought that was very strange. I've never seen that before, but.
Oh, really? The oxygen bars? I've seen them.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
There's some touristy, I call them touristy type things because they're not everywhere. They're in some your metropolitan tourist areas. Was that your first time in Vegas?
Yeah.
What'd you think of it? I want to hear.
It was a lot. It was a little overstimulating, honestly. There was just so much to see and so much to do. But, I had a great time. I met some amazing friends the first night of the conference, and those were kind of like my buddies throughout the conference, and some of them had already been to Vegas. So, even when we weren't in conference mode, they were like, let's go do this, or let's go do that. So
everybody needs a conference buddy, I think. Someone to just, and usually it's good if you meet somebody new or meet a group of people. And when I say conference buddy, it doesn't have to be one person, but, to have a conference group of people or conference buddies that understand how to navigate conferences or an area helpful to allow you to see more of a conference and get more out of it. I was just curious to see what you thought of Vegas. I used to go to the CES conference in Vegas. That was like 10 years or so ago. So I had been to Vegas many times. I haven't been in many years, but the last time I went, I was like, geez, this is just so overrated. It's it's a good fun place to be, but I could probably stand a day or two of it, and then by day 3 I'm like, I'm ready to get out.
Yeah, I think I was there for about 10 days.
Oh wow, that is, and you stayed on the Strip the whole time, or did you venture away from the Strip?
Yeah,
It's on
pretty
MGM,
much.
wasn't it?
Yeah, yep. So the conference was at MGM, and then after the conference, I extended my week to have a mini vacation, to do all the fun things that I didn't get to do during the week.
So what fun things were you doing at Vegas? It's quite a bit to do.
So, we mostly went to Fremont Street. We did the Fremont Street experience where you like zip lines through the street.
Yep.
Yep. That was one thing. We did the high roller, the big Ferris wheel. Had a nice dinner at Gordon Ramsay's kitchen.
Oh, nice.
Did you see him?
Nope.
Were they yelling at each other?
I was gonna say, I feel like if I did, I would hear him call someone a donut or something.
Oh, that's great. No, that's great. Sounds like you had fun. It's good that you were able to get out and enjoy. There's a lot of neat things to do in Vegas. And if you gamble, I guess I heard it's a good place to gamble as well, too. The shows are great as well. I saw a number of shows. I saw O there. I saw a few other ones all within that same type of space. So before we jump into the recap also, so quick overview, what is Power Platform? How would you describe Power Platform to someone? And then I'm interested in hearing about the conference recap and some of the things that you took away from it.
So if I were to describe Power Platform, I'd probably describe it as a suite of low-code tools that seek to empower every individual. I could go on to say every organization and every team, because that's kind of how Microsoft coins it. But I think it is a tool that really seeks to empower those who, may want to have a career change, or, maybe they're like me, who they're just starting their career. And it's a tool that's user-friendly, and it just seems like a great starting place for a lot of people, people that are looking to break into tech, or, like I said, career switchers. It's a tool that you don't really see these days. I know there's a lot of different applications out there, a lot of different software, but how many different types of software can you just pick up and, learn? There's so many different resources, whether it's community driven or Microsoft driven, that allow you to pick up the tool, truly understand it, and actually implement and create, dynamic, captivating solutions for clients, or personal use. So I think that's what the Power Platform is to me. It's just a really intuitive, low-code tool that anyone can pick up, and that's super empowering.
That is a good way to put it, because the part, like what Brad was saying, Power Platform, that term kind of just came out of nowhere. I remember Power BI being a standalone, and I think at some point throughout the years, when someone mentioned Power Platform, I never thought about Power BI being part of that, because I've always thought about it as a standalone. It's been around for quite some time, and all of a sudden you got Power Platform, which kind of generated that. If you remember, used to be called Flow, then it turned into Power Automate. And so kind of putting all of those applications into kind of a family of application called Power Platform. And I like the way you put that into being like it sort of, Microsoft sort of created a career path for many based on this Power Platform, because you have Power Apps, right? That's that on its own. It's an entire different area of career, because you can build crazy apps out of Power Apps, and then you can also have a career in Power Automation, and all those things. And you got Power Virtual Agents, where you can build bots on top of that. So it's really, really cool to see all of this coming into play. And I love that Microsoft, this is hosted by Microsoft, isn't it? The Power Platform Conference. It's actually done by Microsoft themselves.
I think that's actually up for debate. I can't say for sure on that. I know it's called the Microsoft Power Platform Conference, but I think they are just actually a large sponsor. I could be wrong on that. That was my understanding from last year.
Oh, as a standalone? Yeah, because they did a wonderful job putting this together. I mean, the first time that it was announced, and I was like, I want to go there. And then in the second year, thinking like, okay, let's see where they're going to go with this one. And then all of a sudden, this massive conference is happening in Vegas, and I'm sitting back. It's like, I wish I could have gone. Sound like everyone had a great time, and I'm curious. Next year, do you know where next year is going to be at? Did they make that announcement?
I don't. I was actually pretty surprised I didn't see that announcement. But I will be stalking their website.
Nice.
Probably on a daily basis.
Very good. So on the Power Platform, your focus is more than the Power BI. Is that right?
Yep.
And have you done anything with the Power Automate or the other Power Platform applications?
Yeah, a bit. When I first started learning the Power Platform, I kind of dove into all of the different components, if you will. So I took my time and I learned every single component. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in all of the components, because that would be that'd be an incredible feature to have hanging over your head. But I have dabbled. I actually, before I got into the Power Platform, I was a student studying at Ball State University, where I studied user experience design. So coming into the Power Platform, I was actually really, really excited about Power Apps, because I'm like, this is what I've been like learning, and this is what I've been studying. And it kind of blows my mind that I go from, being so invested in application development and product design, to being someone who looks at Power BI reports all day, crunching the numbers, dealing with data, when in school, math was actually my worst subject. So working with numbers all day now, I'm like, it's funny how like tables have turned there.
Yeah, I mean, Power BI, in a sense, you still have to design that, right? Because you want people to be able to read or tell a story based on data, right? Because data doesn't mean anything unless it's telling a story. Then it puts meaning behind it. So I love that. So during conference, was there anything that stood out that they shared or someone taught that it's like, oh my gosh, everyone should know about this?
Yeah, I think the main thing with the Power Platform Conference this year was kind of the Power Platform breaking into the AI era, if you will, or the co-pilot revolution, as they called it. So the hot thing was definitely AI and how it's going to be implemented into the Power Platform, and how it's going to assist users as they continue to create solutions using the Power Platform.
So what's your thought on AI being on Power BI? I saw some examples of how they're using Copilot with Power BI. Want to know your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's going to be incredible. I know, on LinkedIn, I've seen a lot of posts like AI is going to, take over the tech world. It's going to take jobs, etc. But with AI in the Power Platform and Power BI specifically, I think this is going to be an incredible tool moving forward, that not only will help Power BI or Power Platform developers save time, but also, help those that may be just getting started, like kind of create a baseline. So, one example of this would be Power Automate is also being heavily integrated into Power Apps using Copilot. So Copilot will now actually allow you to create Power Apps based on natural language. I think this is a great tool because, you can say, create me an app that is centered around this, and it can do this, this, and this, and Copilot will then generate that for you. And the cool thing about that is it's just a baseline. So you could roll with whatever AI generates for you, but if you want to continue to alter it, expand your skill set or apply your existing knowledge, you can do so. It's not like this is the concrete solution that is provided. You can actually, expand on it.
That was a good summary, and I like the way you reference it, because there are a lot of conversations about AI. I use AI a lot, and what you referenced is important. It's a tool. It's similar to having a hammer. You have an air gun, you have a hammer, you have a screwdriver, you have an electric screwdriver. Does that mean that nobody needs to build or create something? Now, there are some robotics that can create some things, but there are still other cases where you need to have some intervention. So it's just a matter, not interaction by a human at this point. So it does help you become more efficient. So carpenters with a hammer or an electric screwdriver or an air gun can build houses faster. It doesn't mean that somebody's not there working with it, but they also don't always need to use that air gun. Sometimes they use a hammer. So AI, in my opinion, it is a tool that can be used to help with efficiency. I know with coding, it has significantly increased efficiency. Even for me firsthand, I can say that. But it does not mean that it's doing 100% of the work. But I can get more done faster. And it also is good for cutting out some of the, what people would call the mundane or the boring or the repetitive
Tedious
tasks, right? Yeah, that now you can actually focus on the I don't want to say the harder or the things that may require more thought or things that may require more attention, and you're not working with that. But Kris mentioned, I do want to hear your takeaways, because I know you have the blog. I want to hear your takeaways from the conference maybe before you post them. See, I always want to try to get something that's secret, but I also want to go back to this Power Platform, Power Automate. Kris, you said Power Virtual Agent to create a bot. Now, Savannah is good with the Power Platform. Can we make a bot that we can talk with on the podcast? I want to interview a bot.
I'm sure you can.
Can we do it? Savannah, can we do it?
I mean, you'd probably have to train it, but I wouldn't see why not. That would be pretty cool.
What do we have to train it on? I want to do this. Let's challenge ourselves. You in on this?
I'll be in on it, yeah.
We can create a bot that we train.
You feed it. You feed
whatever,
it information.
I don't know. And then we can talk with it and say, hi. And the bot will go, my name is Mr. Bot.
That reminds me of while I was in Vegas, I went to Meow Wolf. It's like an interactive.
What is that? Like, Meow Wolf?
Yeah, Meow Wolf.
Meow Wolf.
It's like a interactive experience, and you walk in and it's a grocery store called Omega Mart. Have you guys heard of this?
No, tell us.
So it's a grocery store where everything looks pretty normal, except all of the products are like funny, like they're like spoofs of things. So like there was like corn PM in replace of like Tylenol PM. And I'm like, that's the perfect pill for the Midwesterner. But what you were saying reminded me they had a robot there and you could talk with it through a keyboard. So I'd be like, hello, and it would say hello back, and you'd have to like type. And this bot in particular really loved ice cream, so I had a whole conversation with a robot about ice cream and his favorite flavors.
We have to see if we can do something like that. If we can't, I do a lot with the audio. I try all these tools. If we could somehow real time, or even if we record it, have the AI generate the response or the question, whatever we want to interact with it, and then have another AI take that written text and present it audibly so that we can record it and we can have a podcast with a robot. We'll have the four of us on and we can talk about it. And then Savannah and Kris,
awesome.
you two can construct it. I'll just talk with it. But I want to try that. That's something I would like to try.
All right.
I think it would be a fun little project. And so what are some of your other takeaways from the conference that you want to share, you potentially were planning on blogging about, or you have blogged about?
Yeah. So, I mean, along with Copilot for, I mentioned Copilot for the Power Platform a little bit. I know Copilot will also start to be integrated into Office a little bit more heavily. So I'm pretty excited about that. Microsoft really pushed the idea of having a virtual assistant to help increase productivity in the workspace to kind of further eliminate, those mundane day-to-day tasks. And the exciting thing about that is all of those features will be, oh gosh, now I can't remember if it's public preview or generally available as of November 1st. I remember the date. See if I can find it really quick. Generally available November 1st. There we go. Yes. So Microsoft 360 Copilot. 365 Copilot. Wow.
It's okay. There's a lot to remember. I have a hard time remembering.
There's so much to remember. So yeah, I mean, AI was the biggest, if you were waving the big flag at the Microsoft Power Platform conference about topics, I think AI and Copilot would be the biggest flag.
Okay, so it was AI and Copilot centric, and everybody's jumping on that AI Copilot bandwagon to think of how to become a little bit more efficient. I need to come up with an assistant. See, after we do the podcast, we'll come up with an assistant for me to do a number of things. It's odd because I remember years ago they had I know Google had the tool where you could call up and it could make reservations for you if somebody called and took an answer, or you could do all these other tools. But now it just seems it's full swing. Like now that it's mainstream and everybody's talking AI for everything. I mean, they think everybody's coming up with AI to help with everything. Anything I use, I see as AI. It's
right.
That's great. So what other takeaways do you have, or what other comments do you have about the conference?
There was a lot. I guess I could briefly talk a little bit about some of the Power BI updates that are coming. Like I said, those are that's my wheelhouse. That's where I like to be. So along with Power BI, Microsoft Fabric is also going to be, it's already kind of started to be this large Una of, products and features that are all kind of rolled into one. So the whole week I was actually, I was trying to wrap my mind around Fabric. What is Fabric? How can I use it?
That was my next question. So you might as well just unravel it for us, because I hear so much about Fabric. I think of it's just a big blanket, a cover or something that's going on, or Fabric is interwoven. I'm trying to come up. They have some great names. It will change. Give it a couple years or a year or two. It will change. It won't be Fabric anymore. It will be something else. And
there'll be some new logos too, I'm sure.
Absolutely. That's why don't change your logo, because then the sticker will be outdated. So I don't want to put this on and have it change on me.
To stay. It's too perfect.
All right, good.
But yeah, Fabric. So it's definitely a concept I've had to wrap my brain around. And honestly, I still am working towards wrapping my brain around what Fabric is and what it can do. But in a nutshell, Fabric, I think, really intends to weave together a lot of Microsoft products that are already in existence related to data analysis. So, you have Data Factory, you have data warehouse, Azure Synapse services. You have all of these different things already working independently. So Fabric really is going to be the thing that ties them all together, in order to, whether you're like a data analyst or a data scientist, or someone like me who kind of tiptoes around everywhere. It's a tool that kind of hopes to bring in everything all in one place. So no matter if you're someone that does coding, like you work in Python, or perhaps you're just a Power Query gal or guy, you can do it all in one central location. So with Fabric, the thing that I'm most excited about is, I work with Business Central primarily, and we create data flows. So having the option now for something like Data Flows Gen 2 connected to Business Central, to create a more fast and efficient process, is going to be super cool. And all of that data will then be loaded into what is called a lakehouse, which is
Fabric Lakehouse, all this great stuff, and
Fabric,
this all coming from the Power
Lake.
BI enhancements that you picked up from Power Platform.
Yeah. Yep. There's quite a lot of stuff there. But another thing too, with Power BI coming with all of these updates, would be something I'm really excited about is what they called Explore mode or exploration mode. And what this is going to allow you to do is to create ad hoc analysis right from within Power BI service. I don't know if either of you are familiar with analysis mode in Business Central. It was in preview recently.
Yes.
That same kind of UI is now going to be available for ad hoc analysis in Power BI service.
So you'll be able to do that same analysis view on the screen with your data, like almost like a powerful pivot table, I call it, on screen.
Yeah, a powerful pivot table. That's
how I explain the analysis view within the Business Central pages to everybody. It's just a big, powerful pivot table. Thank you. I'm still back at Lakehouse, by the way, so trying to figure out what a Lakehouse is. See, that's us dinosaurs. We try to keep up and say, now this put it on the Lakehouse. I do like the name though. Like it's a nice big lake.
There's so much to remember. What is a lake house then? What is a warehouse? What is I don't know. What is one lake?
Well, I think it does. If you look at it, it does have some sense. So you have a lake. A lake is a big body of water that has a lot of stuff in it. Fabric can be something that covers a lot, or it's interwoven. Like you have a lot of pieces interwoven. So maybe that's where the basis, somebody got creative with it. But I think they should just come up with crazy names. I call it Umaluka or something. But I guess it's more memorable. So there's a lot of enhancements to Power BI, which is something that you work with, taking advantage of some of the ad hoc, giving the users a little more power, where you don't need someone to create these views for them or these types of reports, where they can have some auto-generated. It's not necessarily AI in this sense, but let them auto-generate some of their data. One thing that I always thought about that is in having worked with implementations, there has to be something with the users as well to make sure they understand what they're looking at. Because I've had oftentimes conversations with individuals who are viewing and analyzing data, and they just don't fully understand and it's wrong, or the information's wrong, the system's wrong. And it's not wrong per se. It's just what you think you're looking at may not match what you're actually presenting with what you're putting together. So there may need to be a level of understanding of the data that they're looking at before they can run wild. And then I can imagine all the support calls, they'll call you up and say, my total's wrong.
Right. The interesting thing with that too now is with Copilot being embedded within Power BI, end users will actually now be able to also ask Copilot questions about their report, and Copilot will provide them a summary. It will also highlight the visual where the data is coming from.
So I can say what were my sales the fourth quarter for my Contoso coffee drip pot.
Yeah.
And it will give me the information. And who was my top customer for who purchased the drip pot and the bicycle together.
Yeah.
See, that's when you take it to a new level, where now it's just whatever I feel like looking at today. You can mix and match the data. What is involved in training the Copilot on that data to be able to analyze that? Is that intense, or is that?
At least from my understanding of how Copilot will work in Power BI, it's not going to be like a chat bot that you have to train. What Copilot in AA will do is actually analyze your data set. It will learn about what you have, and from there, it can do a few things. It can generate a report for you. It can give you ideas for pages, and it can also give you, summaries based on visuals that you may already have on the page.
That's a wow. I wish I see, Kris, this is why that's one of those conferences I think you go to. You kind of jump in there and you can see all of this stuff and see it presented in a fashion that's usually comprehensible and, quick. You can get some good examples quickly without having to see a lot. So, no, that's great. Are there any other key takeaways that you have that you wanted to relay or discuss? And we can refer to your blog too. We'll send everyone over there so they can read any more in-depth information on this as well, and maybe get a sticker.
Yeah, maybe get a sticker.
You should have a contest. Have a contest for stickers.
I'll probably end up doing another giveaway here very soon, actually. Maybe I'll give away some our platform conference swag as well.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I get the last year's model. What happened to this year's model?
I didn't have it yet.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
you'll have to enter the giveaway.
I'll enter the giveaway when I see it. Are you going? You're not going to? Are you going to Summit? I think you told me you weren't going next week.
I'm not going to Summit this year. Hopefully next year. Fingers are crossed.
Okay, so maybe I'll get my Power Platform Conference 2023 sticker in 2024, which is okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind having last year's model.
Basis,
It's tried and true with the last year's model. So what are some of the other takeaways that you have, or other comments that you have about it? How is the food, by the way?
Yes,
before we get into that, that's always a question I have. That's important to me.
I can't forget about the food. The food at the conference was actually pretty good. I didn't have too many complaints. I'm not really a picky eater, so I'll pretty much I'll eat anything. I really liked the variety, and I liked how efficient they were in kind of herding the cattle to lunchtime. So
in Vegas, they can move a lot of people in some of those places. They can, and like you said, they can herd you and corral you to go right through that little gate to get your food or get wherever they would like you to go. So what other, you mentioned the AI overall, the overarching view was with AI, but then with that, you mentioned there's some great tips with Power BI, not tips, but great enhancements coming to the Power BI realm. Are there any other major or things that stick in your mind that you'd like to comment on?
One of the other major things which I'm excited about, and I don't know if I don't know who else will be, but dark mode is actually coming to Power BI too.
I like dark mode.
Yeah, I like dark mode.
There's something for everybody, by the way. There's for them to put dark mode in there. You're not alone. Somebody else had made a comment about it, I'm sure.
I'm super excited about dark mode. I think it's, personally for me, I use dark mode for just about everything. So now having it in a tool I use every day is going to be super great. Another thing too with Power BI is I think Microsoft is really trying to create a bridge between Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service. So they're going to start, implementing a new, I think, what did they call it? A new backstage. That's what they called it for Power BI Desktop.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So when you log into Power or open up Power BI Desktop now, or soon, you will see a new experience when you open up the application that kind of mirrors other Office products. But in Power BI's case, it's going to allow you to view all of your reports that are on service and open them directly, versus, having multiple different locations. It's all kind of going to be right there and easy to access and edit.
It's going to be backstage.
That makes
Kris.
sense now.
Backstage. No, it does make sense now. I do like what they're doing with this suite. It's, there's different viewpoints on it, but making all of the applications blend together is nice, because then you don't feel like you're going from application to application. You can kind of have that easy flow of the ecosystem. And then even working with Business Central, for example, because that's why I always go back to, the upgrades from Navision, Navol to Nav 2013. A lot of individuals who were upgrading didn't like it because they didn't like the look and feel of it, but any new implementations loved it because they said it feels like Office, right? So they have that familiarity of how to use the application, navigate, and move around. So if you're using Business Central, if you're using Word or Excel, or if you're using Power BI, in the case of what you're talking about, you still have the general understanding of this is where I go for this type of action or this type of information, which is, I like that concept personally as well.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Office too, you will now be able to embed Power BI visuals directly into, say, like an Outlook email, with its dynamic activity kept up. So that's super exciting. Kind of integrating Power BI into other Office products. So whether it's Outlook or PowerPoint, using Microsoft Loop, now you will be able to embed your visuals with that dynamic activity enabled still, versus a static screenshot. So, if you're on your way to a meeting, you can just pop it right in and take it with you, and all of your I keep saying dynamic activity because I can't think of another word, but I guess I'm going to stick with it. You'll still be able to slice and dice your information there. So I think that's super exciting. But again, with the vocabulary we've had Fabric, we've had OneLake, we've had Loop now.
Loop?
Loop?
What's Loop?
Yep.
What is Loop?
Is it the same as
with all
Lake?
these names? What are the names that they have? Data Lake, Lakehouse, Fabric, Loop, Meow Wolf, which wasn't part of Microsoft, but this
you don't know that.
But we should come up with a name for all there, because then they even change the the Azure names to change.
Yep. I think Azure Active Directory is now Entra.
that one.
Yes, they changed. I've said this in other episodes, and I keep saying it over and over again, because I just repeat myself. That's what I like to do. I think they changed the names. I finally figured it out after all these years of why they changed the name, and they changed the name so that they can date when somebody came into the ecosystem. So if I say Navision, I came in back in the late 90s, early 2000. If I say Azure Active Directory, I came in before this year. If I say Intra, then I started in 2023. If I say, if you look at all the names of what they have with all the applications and how they change it, right? AX, FNO, FNSCM, F, whatever you want to call it, that's the one that has the most changes that I'm aware of. But again, it's when did somebody start working with the application? See, it's my theory. And I want to know who's changing all these names to see if there's something with that.
Yeah, you mentioned Microsoft Loop. That kind of threw me off the loop, because when I read about Microsoft Loop, and I was like, okay, well, it's almost like a project coordination or planning tool or communication tool. Then I think back and said, okay, what do you do with Microsoft Teams? Because you could sort of do that. You have tabs in Teams, and then you can also connect other project tools in Teams. So what is the Microsoft Loop? What are they trying to solve? I don't know.
I think Teams will be its own overarching thing that's just like a fabric over everything, with all that they're doing with the AI embedded for notes, with summary, with, like you said, you can embed applications, you can do this. I think it's just going to be a little floating box that's all over the place. And you can have groups and this and that and put all the stuff together. There's a lot to all of this. My head's getting overwhelmed. I actually would like to just go back to the day of just using a notebook and green paper. Back in those days when you used to have the accounting tabs, those accounting notebooks where you would write your T charts and all that stuff for your ledgers instead of all this computer stuff. See? So that's
Past my time.
Listen, I remember when cell phones were invented. I remember my first computer was with Timex Sinclair. Then I bought a Tandy 1000 back when Radio Shack used to be the big computer maker. So
you
can go back memory lane. See, I'm starting to sound like one of those guys. Yo, back when I was little, we used to not have cell phones, and we had a phone call cost a dime, and you'd have to go to the phone booth
or a quarter, 50.
You guys know what a phone
50
booth
cents.
is? I don't even think there are phone booths anymore. I think Disney has a couple for relics, but I think they said there's like one working phone booth in the country now.
Wow,
or something.
that's sad.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
just like Blockbuster.
So all that stuff you saw. Yeah, Blockbuster was good too. No, that's great. What other cool things can you tell us?
Yeah, so I think I just want to take a minute to outside of all of the cool announcements at the Power Platform Conference, I think one thing that it doesn't really get overshined, but I think people don't verbalize it as much is community. I think community really shines during any time with the Power Platform Conference. You see it with others, creating content, or in a virtual landscape or user group meetups. But actually being there at a conference, whether it's the Power Platform Conference or Summit or Dynamics Con, I think it's a really special time. You never know who you're going to be sitting next to, so sparking those conversations I think is pretty neat. I mean, I've sat next to people and started a conversation and they're like, yeah, I do this and this at Microsoft, and I'm like, whoa, completely starstruck then. Or you walk and you see other MVPs walking down the hall, and I just think that's so cool because everyone is so kind and willing to talk. I don't think there was one person at that conference that didn't want to talk to me, or they were like, no, I can't talk right now. So
that's great to hear. That's one of the things we talk about. I know from my experience with the Business Central community and the conferences, and it's overlapping now with the Power Platform, but it's great to know that there's also a sense of community there, because it's
a
like
big shift.
It's almost a family. And it's nice that everybody can work together and help each other to help the products improve.
Yeah, it's a big shift.
Because it's important for these products to become successful, because it helps us all. And when you go to these conferences, that's one of the most important things. People sometimes say, oh, you go out, you're doing this and stuff. The networking aspect of it is amazing. And it's not just a network aspect of, oh, I'm going out and having a couple of drinks or whatever. Yes, you may do that, but it's who you meet, the connections that you make, the information that you can share with this community is important. Yes, there's a lot of things that are published online. There are a lot of things that people write about. You have the blog. I mean, there's YouTube videos, YouTube things that everybody puts together. But sometimes that human touch is still nice to, hey, I had this experience, go watch this video, instead of you having to do it. It's almost like AI or chat itself, but with your network.
I think that's what really Brad and I started this podcast, right? So we want to speak to everyone in the community, not just on the Business Central community or the NAV community. We want to speak to pretty much anybody that works in the Dynamics space, in the Microsoft space, even beyond that. And so we love the fact that you're taking the time, to speaking with us, because we would never have come across to, go to a Power Platform professional. And what does that look like in the Business Central space? I think you're right about that. When you're on your blog, you talk about Business Central and of course also Power BI. It really overlaps. It's not just a Business Central community, or it's not just a Power BI community. It's really just, I don't know, what would you call that entire community? I guess a dynamic community. I guess you could say that. Yeah.
It's a community. It is. And it's almost, and it's so small. Like it feels so small because you run into the same people, and it's also, I think with technology, what's weird too, and you come to some of these conferences and you run into people that that you feel like you've known forever, but it's the first time that you're meeting them, and you get to have the conversation. And it's been unfortunate because there's a lot of people that I converse with or correspond with, many forums. And the only time you get to see them is at a conference. And then you go to the conference, and it's just, it's such a small community. The world's so big, and you kind of put that all together. And I think it's just, an important aspect of the conferences on top of the content, but what you can take away with some of the connections. So it's great. And I do like the overlap.
Right.
So
I would argue that, the connections and the community aspect is almost just as important as the content itself, because
I agree with
without
you.
the community, there would be no content ultimately.
No, that is a good way to present it. It's true, because you need the community to drive the content. And that's where, community-driven content is a thing. And even if you look at in this case, we're talking about Power Platform, Power BI, Business Central, which are Microsoft's products, but even with their outreach to allow more openness in the community, because they can't do everything. They can't know everything. You need the community to bring the products up, because they use it, they test it, they give feedback, to provide feedback to make it better. You can't have two people working and developing Power BI. I don't know how many people are on the team. I'm just using that number for example. Expect them to know everything. Expect them to understand every scenario and everything. So even Microsoft has jumped in to the community-driven type model, which is great. So no, I'm happy to hear that is the same in the Power Platform conference, because Kris, who's also a celebrity, will hopefully get there next year.
Far from it. I want to meet other celebrities, that blogs about stuff like this. Like, good. I want to meet Savannah in person. I want to meet all the other MVPs that's taking the time to share their knowledge, because, that wasn't around when I got into the dynamic space. It was very hard to find content back then, and it was a struggle. I mean, trying to figure out on your own, and you're like stuck on something and you can't really interact, or nobody posts stuff.
I started before there were web pages. I remember using, Netscape and all those we had those browser wars way back then when things just came out, and you had like CompuServe and AOL.
Netscape,
and you have that whole, I wish I had the sound
Lotus.
clip for dial-up where you went,
Lotus Notes.
And then like the screens were really slow. And you're like, oh, I have a 2400 baud modem. Yes. I'm blazing fast. See, we have to go back to those times.
I know.
I really think we do. Well, Savannah, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. I've been looking forward to it. Thank you for sharing your information and sharing your insights on the Power Platform Conference and the community and the ecosystem as a whole. Thank you again very much for the sticker. It will be on my laptop. As of the time of this recording, Community Summit's next week, so I'll have that there and everybody will see it. Unfortunately, we won't see you there, but as Kris stated, I look forward to meeting you in person sometime, and we will have to collaborate on this. How do we interview a bot on a podcast? But
yeah, absolutely.
But beforehand, before we finish the podcast, would you please tell everyone how they can get in contact with you or see more of the great information that you share, whether it's on your blog or elsewhere in the community?
Yeah. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Savannah Dill, or you can follow my blog at Not a Pickle Blog. It's not a pickle.blog, but those will be the two main, sources of truth when it comes to connecting with me.
No, great. Thank you. We'll put that in the show notes. And I think you need to put some bread and butter pickles on there too. Just put a picture for me and just say it's it's a good thing. Well, thank you again. And we look forward to speaking with you soon.
Savannah.
Ciao, ciao. Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is dvlprlife.com, and you can interact with them via Twitter, dvlprlife. You can also find me at matalino.io, matalino.io, and my Twitter handle is matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.